This is True News, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God. I'm Rick Wiles. The Biden administration said the threat of war between Russia and Ukraine remains high as military experts prepare combat options in case tensions between the two countries erupt into open warfare. U.S. Ambassador Michael Carpenter said that the drumbeat of war is sounding loud and the rhetoric has become shrill. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the threat of a Russian military invasion of Ukraine is high. And Poland's Foreign Minister Zbigniew Rau said that the European continent could be plunged into war with Russia. Doc Burkhart and I have the full report to keep you informed.
Hey, Rick. I thought for a few days we had a little bit of a breather there with the discussions going on with NATO and the Russians, but I think we both knew going into it that they were at a standoff, and so
we're back to where we were at a couple weeks ago. In fact, I'll show you an Al Jazeera report. Russia demands the United States and NATO respond next week in writing on Ukraine.
And basically, what they need to hear from NATO and the United States is that Ukraine and Georgia will not be allowed into NATO at any time, now or in the future.
That's right, Doc. You've been here a number of years. You've covered a lot of stories here involving Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, and he's not known for making flamboyant statements.
No.
He's like this monotone, unflappable diplomat who carefully chooses his words, and you could be throwing pies in his face and he would be wiping them off saying, I hope our partners who are throwing the pies
will reconsider.
Yes.
So,
when's the last time you've heard Lavrov say, we're getting fed up?
Or to demand something.
Yes.
That's unusual in his character to say, we demand it now.
Yes.
Because we need to get a clarification on this, because it sounds to me like Russia's getting ready to make some serious decisions here in the next few days.
They have given, remember, they had the phone call. Putin and Biden had a phone call weeks ago.
Yes.
Putin made a proposal. He told Joe Biden, you will have our proposal next week. So we only know what the Russian press said was in the proposal.
Right.
So they did get a proposal. Russia's waiting on a response. They're not getting any response. They're getting the typical arrogant U.S., NATO propaganda that you don't tell us what to do,
or delay.
Delay. And so the Russians are saying, we want a response in writing next week to our proposal. We're not going to have endless meetings while you just continue to move your troops and tanks closer to our border, and we have these phony discussions. We gave you a proposal. We want a response in writing. That's what they're saying here today. We got a couple quotes from this Al Jazeera article.
Yes, so Russia has strongly repeated its demand that NATO will not expand eastwards, despite the rejection of that by the military alliance amid a Russian troop buildup near Ukraine. So it added on Friday that it would not wait indefinitely for the Western response. Go ahead, Rick.
No,
I'm sorry.
Okay. What I wanted to point out, Doc, Russia said they will not wait indefinitely for the Western response. Weeks ago, Russian Ambassador Ryabkov said, we're running out of time.
Yes.
The window will close. We're willing to talk, but we're not going to wait forever. Now you're seeing today a more definitive statement from Russia. We're not going to wait forever for the United States and NATO to respond. Well, what does that mean?
That means they've got something on their calendar ready to happen.
They're going to take action, Doc.
Yes.
And what is the action that Russia's going to take? They're not invading Ukraine to seize Ukraine. They're going to take out NATO troops and tanks and missiles in Ukraine. It's just that simple. they're telling the United States and NATO, get your troops and rockets and tanks and guns, get them out of Ukraine,
Right.
or we will take them out. I'm telling you, they're not interested in occupying Ukraine, but they don't want NATO occupying Ukraine.
And flipping the script, once again, if there were Russian troops sitting on the border of Texas right now,
And we may be seeing that very soon.
and we'll be touching on some of those stories there, our reaction would be the same. We don't want Russian missiles and tanks and everything else sitting on the U.S. border. So Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov described Moscow's demands that NATO will neither expand nor deploy forces to Ukraine and other ex-Soviet nations as essential for the progress of diplomatic efforts to diffuse soaring tensions over Ukraine. He argued that the deployment of NATO forces and weapons near Russia's borders poses a security challenge that must be addressed immediately. To quote Mr. Lavrov, "We have run out of patience," he said at a news conference. "The West has been driven by hubris and has exacerbated tensions in violation of its obligations and common sense." Lavrov said Russia expects Washington and NATO to provide a written response to its demands next week. And so he's making it very clear. This is a demand. This is a demand letter. Give us clarification on what your intentions are moving forward. If NATO's intentions and the U.S. intentions are to continue the progress of Ukraine and possibly Georgia into the NATO alliance, you can expect a response from the Russian Federation.
Yes, and that response is going to be the obliteration of NATO forces in Ukraine.
And then the U.S. and NATO are going to call that an invasion. They're going to paint Russia as the bad guys. But if it was us, once again, if we had Russian troops sitting across the border from Texas, we would be doing everything we can to get rid of those troops, get rid of that threat, up to and including at some point blowing them up.
That's right.
So,
And the Russians have said many times in the past year, they've referred to this as a new Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes. And that's interesting that they use that phrase, because we'll be talking about Cuba a little bit later here. Al Jazeera is also reporting that Russia is saying that NATO talks are unsuccessful as Poland, which is a firm U.S. ally, warns of war. So this past week, the Russians have been meeting with NATO representatives. So this week of diplomacy aimed at easing this Russia-Ukraine tension looks set to fail. It has failed as fears of escalation rise.
So, Doc, the Russians went to the NATO meeting and they left frustrated. And you know what they said to themselves as they left? This is a waste of time. They're not serious. They don't think we'll do something. That's what the Russians are saying to themselves. NATO doesn't think we'll do anything.
Right.
They just sat here and insulted us. They don't think we have the courage to act. They're going to be shocked. The Russians are going to act. They have no choice at this point. NATO rockets now can be in Moscow in what, less than 5 minutes?
Right. So that's a direct threat toward Moscow, toward the nation's capital. How else are they going to respond? Well, here's one possible response that Russia's doing. This is out of the Wall Street Journal just yesterday. Russia is suggesting military deployment to Venezuela and Cuba if tensions with the U.S. remain high. And so the Deputy Foreign Minister, Ryabkov, said Moscow couldn't exclude sending military infrastructure to the two countries. Now, of course, Rick, right, your generation and the cusp of my generation, of course, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Russia had missiles sitting in Cuba 90 miles from Florida.
Nuclear-armed missiles.
Right. And so this brings back some of that memory, some of that historical memory for a lot of people. And, of course, the response has been, this is McClatchy in D.C., U.S. vows decisive response if Russia pursues threatened deployments in Cuba and Venezuela.
Well, wait a minute.
But what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
You mean if Russia puts rockets and troops in Cuba and Venezuela, the United States would attack them?
That's basically what they're saying. A decisive response.
How is that different than Russia attacking NATO in Ukraine?
Oh, because it's our backyard here. That's why. And so
the U.S. hypocrisy, the arrogance and hypocrisy of the Western leaders is unbelievable. It just is unbelievable.
Right.
And the rest of the world shakes their head at it. And I'm embarrassed as an American citizen. I'm just embarrassed by the people that lead this country. There's no justification for this. If you were trying to have peace in the world, you wouldn't be doing these things. But they're not interested in peace. They're interested in domination. Wealth and power, domination, even if it results in the death of hundreds of millions of people.
And Rick, conflict is more profitable than peace.
Yes.
And that's the reality of the
And
situation.
these people are, these New World Order maniacs, they have in progress right now the depopulation of the earth. So a war would really just speed things along.
Well, Jerusalem Post today, referring to a Reuters development, says the U.S. is concerned that Russia is fabricating a pretext for war with Ukraine. And so the article goes on to say U.S. is concerned that Russia is preparing for an invasion of Ukraine. Notice how they frame this: soon by fabricating a pretext for war if diplomacy fails to meet its objectives.
So the U.S. is accusing Russia of planning a false flag.
Right, basically.
And this false flag, Doc, is there. And when you read into this, they're saying that that Russia is going to attack its own forces.
Right. That's basically what they're saying. And so a spokesperson for the White House National Security Council said it was not yet clear who was responsible for the cyber attack, but that President Joe Biden had been briefed on. Now, for those that hadn't heard, Ukraine basically came under a cyber attack today. 90% of the government websites were down for a good portion of the day in Ukraine. And of course, who are they blaming? They're saying it's Russia. Right. Look what the Russians are doing. They're already doing cyber attacks on Ukraine. The problem is, if they really believed it was Russia, they would already responded to Russia. Mm-hmm. They don't. We know who it is. We know the players are involved. We hacked ourselves because we do it. We do it to ourselves, our own government sites. And so, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters the U.S. is concerned that the Russian government is preparing for an invasion into Ukraine that may result in widespread human rights violations, Rick, and war crimes should diplomacy fail to meet their objectives. And she went on to say, as part of its plans, Russia is laying the groundwork to have the option of fabricating a pretext for invasion, including through sabotage activities and information operations, by accusing Ukraine of preparing an imminent attack against Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. The Russian military plans to begin these activities several weeks before a military invasion, which could begin between mid-January and mid-February.
Okay, there's the first time we've seen dates.
Yes.
Now, this is coming from the White House, folks. Remember, this is Jen Psaki. This is coming from the Biden White House. They just mentioned dates, mid-January to mid-February. Well, what is today's date?
It's mid-January.
This is mid-January. All right. So they're saying between now and the middle of February, expect war with Russia.
Right. And so they kind of outlined in that quote. We put the quote back up on the screen real quick there. They outlined the activities and things that they expect to see Russia doing before they would do an invasion. And each one of these things, Rick, the cyber attack that they're accusing Russia of today and all these other things, you can almost bet that NATO is behind these. And the next quote that we have here, a U.S. official said the U.S. has information, always have information, Rick, that indicates Russia has already positioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. I think they misspelled NATO there and said Russia. The operatives are trained in urban warfare and in using explosives to carry out acts of sabotage against Russia's own proxy forces, said the official, who spoke on condition of anonymity, always anonymous.
From Tel Aviv.
Right. And so the official also said that indications are that Russian influence actors are already starting to fabricate Ukrainian provocations in state and social media to justify a Russian intervention and sow divisions in Ukraine. And so already It's really kind of comical that, but it's so tragic in the comedy of it that they're laying out what they're planning to blame Russia for.
Well, a week or two ago, the Russians said they had information that NATO was going to do a false flag operation using chemical weapons,
Right.
and blame Russia. So, what I'm hearing here is something's going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Right. So we're right in the midst of it. And so we have some video. Russia is not sitting back idly and just waiting for something to happen. They're mobilizing some of their forces. And we have some video out of from Rio Novosti to show you.
Well, this first one, Doc, I think is this, maybe I have it wrong. The first one, I think, is just some video that was on social media. That
Okay.
Russian citizens were posting showing Russian vehicles moving in the country. Let's watch this one.
While still unpredictable which direction Mr. Putin will go, there is a very real chance of conflict in the minds of most people I've been talking to.
So that's just a sample of what they're seeing on social media right now of some of the different troop movements on the Russian side of the Ukrainian border.
Yeah, and the video was produced by Canada's Globe and Mail newspaper.
Right.
But they gathered social media video of Russian tanks moving into position, supposedly, if this is real. So I would assume it is that the Russians are expecting a NATO invasion.
Yes. I kind of hinted around at the Rio Novosti video. So Rio Novosti is reporting that there's been an announced sudden check of combat readiness, and that's being carried out in the troops of the Eastern Military District that borders Ukraine there. The Russian Defense Ministry said. We have a sample of some of the preparation that the SNAP readiness drill is underway right now that the Russians are undertaking. Watch this. Something to keep in mind for our audience is that Russia, they're looking at this, they're defending their homeland.
Yes.
Okay? For NATO, this is just another political notch on their belt, if they want to move ahead with this. But for Russia, this is defending the homeland. They're defending their homes and their families.
This is survival.
Right. So they are serious about preparing there. Russia is not some, we get some perception in our mind that Russia is some antiquated, they're still using Soviet military equipment and all this kind of idea in our mind. You saw those personnel carriers, that equipment. It's not old stuff. It's all new stuff.
Yes.
So they're very serious about this. And something else to keep in mind, too, for our audience, Russia is traditionally a winter army. They have survived so many conflicts in the winters, going all the way back before Napoleon. They are a winter army. They are prepared to fight in the winter. All these suntan NATO troops, are they prepared to fight in the winter? That's the real question, because this is the perfect time of year for Russia to respond to anything NATO does. This is the perfect time of year.
Now's the time for Mark Milley to bring out all the transvestite soldiers and the American Armed Forces.
Yeah, put them on the front lines.
This is it. Show us what these transvestites can do on the battlefield, because the Russians are going to tear them to pieces. I saw a story today on one of the Russian websites, information I never knew, but they made a reference to, remember Russia sent troops to Kazakhstan? Right. And this reference in the article was, Moscow has not forgotten how Kazakhstan troops rescued Moscow from the Nazi invasion in 1941.
Really?
Yes.
So they kept a long memory there.
Yes, and that's exactly what it said. They are our blood brothers, and we remembered. So there's a lot here emotionally that's involved here that Westerners don't understand, and they have no knowledge of these historical bonds and commitments. But the Russians, as Doc said, this is about defending the homeland. They've got NATO troops and missiles and tanks literally sitting on their border. Yes. As though if we were talking about Russian tanks at the Rio Grande, you know what we would be talking about here today?
Defend the homeland.
We would be telling every American, get ready. We're all going to be fighting.
Yes.
The Russians are coming across the Rio Grande. All right? That's how the Russians are seeing this. And they're going to fight with all their might to save their country. Now, I'm going to show you some of the other things. We'll give you an idea of where this is headed. Did we show number? We showed 13?
Yes, we did.
Okay. The North Koreans have been firing off rockets, and so this first one.
Yeah. So
this one's today, right?
Yeah, that's today. So they actually fired 2 missiles today, about 11 minutes apart. Both of them flew about 300 miles. But they supposedly were accurately sent out. They had targets out in the waters there.
I've lost count how many missiles Korea has fired off in the past week.
Well, in the past couple of weeks, remember earlier this week or late last week, they said they had fired off a hypersonic missile. And at first, the reports, everybody was out there, discrediting that. And then finally, Japan came out and said it might very well have been a hypersonic missile that they were testing.
And so what was the message that North Korea sent today?
Well, this is in response to the U.S. sanctions that have been put on North Korea. North Korea test-fired what appeared to be 2 ballistic missiles from an inland area toward the East Sea on Friday in its 3rd weapons launch this month, just hours after it warned of stronger and certain reaction toward Washington for imposing new sanctions against the regime's recent back-to-back missile tests. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said North Korea fired 2 projectiles believed to be short-range ballistic missiles from a site in North Pyongyang province toward its east coast on Friday afternoon. BBC also reporting North Korea fires 2nd suspected missile in 6 days. And so this is just, as we mentioned earlier, this is less than a week after it launched what it claimed was a hypersonic missile, and now other nations are actually confirming that.
And Doc, that BBC article was days ago.
That's right.
So that's January 11. They fired a 2nd missile in 6 days. So they fired 2 more today.
Yes.
And what they fired today was in response to U.S. sanctions for firing this missile.
Yes.
So the U.S. put sanctions on them for firing a missile, and they said, okay, here's our response. We'll fire 2 more missiles.
Now, something interesting that developed, now notice that the date on this is from the 11th. So the actual missile that they're talking about here was fired on the 10th. Now, we didn't get the opportunity earlier this week to talk about this, but earlier this week, the Drive was reporting something strange that was going on the West Coast. And it says, a mystery surrounds an FAA order to halt all West Coast air traffic after North Korean missile launch. Okay, so this article came out late on the 10th, early on the 11th, and says on the afternoon of Monday, January 10th, at around 2:30, the FAA issued a ground stop order to all planes, at least in the western U.S. In this temporary pause in all movements to and from airports included aviators being ordered to land, and lastly, roughly between 7 and 20 minutes before it was lifted and services returned to normal. There has so far been no explanation given for this action. Now, in this vacuum of information, some are connecting the highly peculiar event to another ballistic missile test launch out of North Korea, the second in less than a week that traveled 435 miles from its launch point, impacting relatively far out into the Sea of Japan.
So, Doc, and again, this happened Monday.
Right.
Was the United States government for 7 to 20 minutes seriously worried that North Korean rocket was headed towards the United States West Coast?
Well, something was definitely happening at that time because they needed all air traffic out of the sky. For whatever reason, they needed all air traffic out of the sky for a certain period of time.
Well, that would be because you're going to shoot down an incoming rocket.
Right, and we didn't want to shoot down, an airliner or a private plane or anything else that might be flying around up there. Now, one pilot that was flying into Yuma told the War Zone that they were alerted to what controllers called a national ground stop and ordered to land before it was lifted. Now, on a Reddit ATC thread, controllers were discussing the puzzling ground stop, which appears to have been contained in just the western U.S. Some commented that they had not seen anything like it since 9/11, Rick. There was also an image that supposedly shows the flight strips with the ground stop orders on them that our friend at OSIN Technical has reposted. As you can see below, we cannot confirm their authenticity at this time. Now, we'll show you a picture of those flight strips. So these are messages that come through from the FAA and that basically carry out in confirmation form all ground stop for all departures. This is not a joke. More info to follow, and it gives kind of the timeline for this as these orders came through, and that when it was lifted. And so, for a period of up to about 20 minutes there, as these ground strips, flight strips show, what was going on there? Why did the FAA order all flights out on the West Coast to either land or not to depart, but to basically clear the skies? And when we saw this the other day, my first reaction was, this hasn't happened since 9/11. Remember 9/11, yes. Of course, they had to ground every single plane in the sky across the entire North American continent because they didn't know which plane could be flying into whatever, Capitol building or anything else at that point.
But Doc,
they were completely at a loss as to what was going on. Or at least that was the story they put out there.
The FAA grounded military flights too.
They did?
Yes, they did.
I didn't know that aspect of it.
They grounded all military flights.
Wow. Now that's interesting.
Now, why would you ground military flights? You would want the military in the air, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would.
Okay. I got that directly from an FAA high-level supervisor who protested the order and then was told, this comes from Washington, implement it.
So not just commercial traffic, but military traffic as well.
Because the FAA supervisor that I spoke with told the supervisor in Washington, here's how many military flights we have over this state right now. And the order was, they all land. Orders of Washington. And so the FAA supervisor that told me the story said, I had to order all of the military flights over this state to land and it did not make sense. So they wanted everything. They wanted no defense that day. They made sure America was vulnerable. They made sure we were going to get hit. You understand? Your government made sure you were going to be hit.
I understand what you're saying now.
They made sure you're going to get hit. Okay. So, but anyhow, the feeling
I never thought about that before.
The feeling I get about this in California, the West Coast, is that they were worried for a few minutes that rocket coming from North Korea possibly was on a trajectory that was going to bring it to Los Angeles or Seattle.
That it very well could have been a hypersonic missile.
Yes.
So that's an indication to me then, Rick, that they know that North Korea has the ability to hit the West Coast now. And all they're doing now is calibrating their targeting, aren't they?
Yes.
That's all they're doing at this point. Wow.
So another story that we didn't talk about here at True News days ago, we've had so much COVID craziness and the vaccine mandates and stuff to cover. We've been overlooking a lot of this stuff. But this one is from Israel Hayam. A top Iranian general says, when we strike at America, it will be with great force.
Right, so this is from, as Rick said, from Israel Hayom. This is from Tuesday. A top Iranian general threatened recently that when the time was right, the Islamic Republic would strike the U.S. with great force, the Middle East Media Research Institute reported. In an interview with Hezbollah's Al-Manar TV on the 4th of January, Admiral Ali Fadavi said that soon the world would witness America's full retreat from the Middle East. We do not have the slightest doubt that at the right time, when we strike America, the great Satan, and its Zionist followers, we will strike them with great force. As Imam Khomeini famously said a long time ago, when the Zionists were entertaining some illusions, he said, if they take even the smallest step against us, we will turn Haifa and Tel Aviv into dust, said Fadavi. If the Zionists do something stupid and take a step against us, whether big or small, we will see this as a sign that Allah decreed that we should be attacked so that we could retaliate. This would mean the annihilation of the Zionists, he added. And so they're taking this very seriously at this point. And
notice how they are interpreting an attack from Israel or the United States on Iran. They're interpreting it through religious eyes,
right,
and saying that would be a sign,
the sign from God,
that they are to attack the United States and Israel with great force.
The general went on to say it's a fact that the Zionists will go away much faster than the time frame determined by the leader Khomeini. Soon we will witness the annihilation of the Americans and their dominance over the world, and specifically over this region. Soon we will see them leave the region. This will definitely happen, said Fadavi. So where's this going, Rick?
To witness the annihilation of the Americans. Look at what we're talking about here. NATO is getting ready to start a war with Russia. North Korea may have fired a hypersonic missile towards the West Coast days ago. The Iranians said at the beginning of the month, this was on the January 3rd, the anniversary of President Trump's murder of General Soleimani. It was murder, it was assassination, that's murder. That's when the Iranians said, the annihilation of the Americans is coming soon.
Right.
Now, the Iranians have made some other threats in recent days, connected to Soleimani's, the anniversary of his death. And we want to show you this one. Okay, so this is put up by Radio Free Europe. Iran vows revenge on anniversary of general's killing in U.S. airstrike.
So this was about a week ago, about a week and a half ago now, where this story is coming out, and the Iranians are, easily saying that this is something that is still, in their minds. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has vowed revenge for the killing of a top Iranian general in a U.S. drone strike in Baghdad 2 years ago. And so let's tie this in. About that same time, that same day, as a matter of fact, something happened with the Jerusalem Post. Okay, the Jerusalem Post was hacked that same day. Okay, so the Jerusalem Post website was hacked with an Iranian warning on the anniversary of the Soleimani killing.
And that's the image that was placed by the hackers on the homepage of the Jerusalem Post.
Now, can't see the whole picture here, but the image at the bottom of the screen is Dimona. So they're making it very clear that if something were to proceed in the future, then Dimona would be a definite target. Of course, Israel's denied that, well, they haven't denied so much as they say they won't admit that they have the capability of nuclear weapons and everything, although everybody knows they do.
Dimona is Israel's Los Alamos.
Right.
Now look at the upper left corner of the drawing.
It looks like a hand with a ring on it.
It is a hand. That's Soleimani's hand. That represents the hand of General Soleimani, and out of the ring is a rocket.
Right.
What does the ring represent?
Power, authority. What do you think?
Well, yes. There's definitely some significance to the ring. That the killing shot against Israel is coming from that ring.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't researched it enough to know what the hidden meaning is, but they're showing you General Soleimani's hand. The ring is releasing a rocket into Dimona to destroy the Israeli nuclear facility.
Now, if we can put the still back up real quick, there's some writing here, and we'll talk about it here in just a moment. It says 2 Israeli media outlets were hacked early Monday with warnings from an Iranian propaganda video linked to the second anniversary of the assassination of top General Qasem Soleimani. The website of the Jerusalem Post showed a scene from an Iranian missile drill last month in which Tehran destroyed a mock-up of Israel's nuclear reactor in Dimona. In the picture, the rocket appears to be fired from the iconic ring Soleimani wore with the caption, "We are close to you where you did not think about it." And it was written in both English and Hebrew.
So what does that mean? We are close to you where you do not think about it.
And the fact that it was written in both English and Hebrew, I think it's another message that's being sent there. If it was just a message for Israel, it would be likely they would just put it in Hebrew, right?
Yes.
So why in English and Hebrew?
Well, if you're going to retaliate for the assassination of General Soleimani, who was their highest ranking general, he's like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Right.
If you're going to retaliate, I'm just saying, from the Iranian point of view, if you're carrying out a retaliation, then the targets in America, I would think, I could think of 3 different people who would be targets. General Soleimani's peer on the military level would be General Mark Milley.
Right. That was where he's at as far as
Yes.
status and rank is concerned.
So they could possibly attempt to assassinate General Milley. The second person I would say would be high on the list of a hit from the Iranians would be former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Right.
And then at the highest level would be Donald Trump, because he ordered the U.S. military and the CIA, working with the Israelis, he ordered the hit that killed General Soleimani.
And this was,
and then he bragged about it.
Right, and this wasn't just a hit. This was a bait and hit.
Yes.
They baited Soleimani to Baghdad and then killed him in Baghdad. And so it was a bait and hit. And so they want to respond to that. Now, something interesting happened this week. So Times of Israel is reporting this, but of course a number of different outlets are too. Iran leader's website showcases animation of drone strike killing Donald Trump. Now, this video threatens revenge on the former U.S. president for the assassination of General Soleimani more than 2 years ago. And so I don't know if our audience has seen this particular video yet. Sometimes North Korea and Iran, they put out these videos and everything, and they're kind of kitschy, and the imagery and everything is not that great. This one's a little bit different. And so let's show this, and we'll have some comments on it.
Revenge is definite. That's what it said. Revenge is definite. It also said 2 people would be murdered. The one who carried out the killing of General Soleimani and the one who ordered it. The one who ordered it is President Trump. So who's the one who carried it out? Is it General Milley? That implied 2 people would be killed. Right there. Look at that. Soleimani's murderer and the one who gave the order will pay the price.
I missed that earlier, Rick, because I just figured the target was simply Donald Trump.
I didn't see it the first time I watched it. I just saw it now. I saw, okay, there's 2 people in this. They're targeting 2 people. And at the very end, it said, revenge is definite.
Yes. And this isn't just floating around out on social media somewhere. This is on the Iranian leader's website right now.
It's like on the White, I mean,
on the White House
to the White House page.
Right.
They're telling the whole world they're going to assassinate Trump and one other person. And I can't say right now off the top of my head that I know who carried out the assassination of Soleimani. Would they consider that Mike Pompeo, the CIA director,
Well, that's a possibility too.
That would have been
Haspel at that point,
Haspel,
right?
Gina Haspel.
Right.
Or do they consider Mark Milley, the general at the Joint Chiefs of Staff, or maybe another high-ranking general that was in charge of the Middle East?
Well, let's keep in mind too that Israel was our partner with us in this bait and hit that took place.
Yes, but they didn't do it.
I know, but did they give the order?
No, Trump gave the order. Trump made a remark that he was very upset that Netanyahu did not do the right thing in the Soleimani killing. And Trump said, Israel would fight Iran down to the last American soldier. Trump said that. Okay? So Israel's hands are full of blood. But the Zionists always get somebody else to do their dirty work.
As in this case.
And Trump knows he did the dirty work. He's got blood on his hands. And the Iranians are coming after him. Look, I hope nothing happens to him. This would be a horrible
Absolutely.
thing. But imagine you wake up one morning and you find out that Donald Trump was assassinated by the Iranians.
And isn't it interesting that this video, it's an animation. Obviously, a lot of work went into it, but how realistic it was. It showed hacking Mar-a-Lago. I mean,
And the drone.
right. I mean, the detail and everything that was involved with it, and really laying out the plan and saying we have the ability, we can hack we could hack into Mar-a-Lago now if we wanted to.
There was an Iranian hacker in Tehran who gave access to the drone in Palm Beach
Right.
to enter Mar-a-Lago. In that video, that the man in the military unit was in Iran, and he opened the door at Mar-a-Lago for the drone
Ground
to
drone,
enter.
yes.
Okay, so what they're implying is just what you said, Doc. They are saying they have the ability to open the gates of Mar-a-Lago. Right. This is getting very, very serious, very scary. Now we're going to show you something else. Doc brought this to my attention today. I had not seen it. This is number 29.
Right. Something strange is going on at the White House, Rick. I saw pictures and videos of this popping up earlier this week. They're building something on the White House lawn. Now, back in 2020, they had this big wall that went around the ellipse and everything. This is something completely different. This is very close up on the White House lawn.
On the other side of the fence.
On the other side of the fence. And so they're building a structure of some kind and requires some very heavy equipment, moving some things around. We've got a video from one of the people with the radio station that's referring to on this site. Went over and shot some video of what's going on over there and the reasoning that they're doing this. So let's watch this and we'll have some thoughts on this.
I need to oil the digger. Actually, that's a Jersey barrier mover. We got Jersey barriers set up in the back there. Sorry about that. They have a Jersey barrier set up in the back and wood set up in the front. Looks like they have windows or something. No, they're not having windows. It's just they've got some unpainted pieces. He says they're working on the fountain. The cop asked, some people asked him.
So those are concrete barriers of some kind. They're going up on the White House lawn. And like I said, this has been going on all this week and everything, and it hasn't really gotten a lot of major media attention at all.
What's the Secret Service, what are they expecting?
That's the great question. They're not working on a fountain, okay? Now, they did some work on the fountain, I guess, a couple of months back on the other side of the White House and everything. But on this side of the White House, there is a fountain, but it's like, a garden fountain or something like that. You don't put up a massive concrete barrier for a fountain.
Are they expecting Iranian sleeper cells to be activated who will jump the fence and storm the White House?
At this point, Rick, we have to keep open whatever possibilities there are out there. I mean, the White House obviously is expecting something. They've kept Joe Biden moving all this week. He went up to Delaware for a few days, came back for today, is going back up to Delaware this weekend. So they're doing a lot. And when President Biden did his infrastructure briefing today, he didn't even do it at the White House. He did it across the street at that fake White House set that they've got built up and everything. And so he's not around the White House much this week. So they're doing something. And all around the White House, too, on the streets, they're doing some major work underground. So it's interesting, this story, especially in light of all the activities with Russia, North Korea, Iran, and of course, the response of people to COVID as well. It could be that the White House may be anticipating some kind of response from people who are just finally getting fed up with everything going on with the mandates and everything as well. That's another, part of the equation here that could be a possibility.
Yeah. Doc, do you know what the current inflation rate is in the United States?
Well, they say it's 7%, but that's not a true inflation rate.
The latest figure, official figure now, is 9.7.
Really?
Yeah.
Because yesterday they were reporting 7, and but that was using fuzzy math.
So we're approaching 10% inflation rate right now.
So it's Jimmy Carter 2.0 at this point.
Yeah. But I think that whatever barriers they're putting up at the White House, I think they're expecting some type of physical attack on the White House. You've got the Iranians just put out a video of an assassination of Donald Trump. We're a lot closer to a world war than most Americans realize. I want to go through a couple more stories before we close for Friday and take a weekend to rest and forget about all this stuff. Hopefully we can get through a weekend and be back here on Monday and not have any catastrophe happen. If we go by what the White House is saying about war, it's between mid-January now and mid-February.
Right.
So we got about a 4-week window for the possibility of a war to erupt with Russia and NATO.
Now we know how to pray, right?
Yeah.
So
I want to jump down to number 31. This is from Channel 4 in Great Britain. MI5 accuses Chinese agent of trying to influence UK politicians. It's nothing new here for me, but it's the fact that the intelligence agency of Great Britain is openly accusing a person in Great Britain of being a Chinese influence agent who is trying to get access and to British politicians and to change government policy.
So where do you think they're going with this, Rick?
I think that they know that the infiltration is much deeper than they've wanted to publicly admit.
And so they have to put something out.
And they're now putting it out. The fact that they're putting it out in the news is big in Great Britain. They usually just quietly take care of this stuff. Okay, so they're warning members of Parliament, be on guard. There are Chinese influence agents operating in the country. We go to Canada. Now, this one is a Chinese miner, which means a mining company owned by the Communist Party.
Right.
Will purchase Canada's neolithium for $770 million. This is for the production of batteries.
Right.
The Chinese Communist Party bought Canada's lithium battery maker. How in the world did that happen?
Because Canada and China have been in bed with each other now for years.
Because
and Canada is becoming China.
China has, yes, influence agents in Canada. And there are so many Canadian politicians who have been bought off. That's why Canada has gone the China way in the past 2 years with COVID.
And even if the spy agency in China comes out with some sort of report like we see from the Globe and Mail here, says that Canada's spy agency is warning members of Parliament to beware of influence operations from China. Well, it's a little too late. China is already influencing MPs and government officials.
Doc, I can go back 20 years of True News and show you stories from Canadian newspapers where Canada's spy agency warns of Chinese operations. It's been going on for at least 20 years in Canada.
Are they warning the MPs so they know where to pick up the checks? Is that really where it's at, Rick? Or?
Well, apparently the spy agencies really have very little power. I guess they have no power or influence because the Canadian politicians have continued to open the doors of Canada to China. I've seen no reaction from Canadian government officials saying we have to protect our country from Chinese agents. Instead, China is running the country. They shut the churches down. They have imposed a vaccine passport scheme. You can't travel from one province to the other without a vaccination. You can't get into the country without a vaccination.
Sounds like China.
Sounds like China. So China's doing quite well in Canada. Now I want to skip down to number 37. This is Daily Mail today.
Speaking of influence.
Nancy Pelosi's son, Paul, was involved in 5 companies investigated by the U.S. federal government.
He's really just an unlucky guy, isn't he, Rick? Just getting jobs at companies, and then suddenly the government investigates them.
For some reason, this just isn't.
Just bad luck.
It's just not news to me, because the story here is Pelosi's son is corrupt.
Yes.
Well, there's no news.
Another one of these corrupt princes, once again. And so.
And what do you have with China? You have the hirelings.
Right.
The communist officials run the country, and their sons and daughters are the princes and prince that get all the money.
The China way.
That's the China way. That's what Biden is. It's what Hunter Biden running the country. I mean, Joe Biden running the country, and his son Hunter bringing in the money to Papa from the communists. So Nancy Pelosi's son just doing what the rest of them are doing. I'll go down a quick list of some of the crooked deals that Paul Pelosi Jr. has been involved in.
So a Daily Mail investigation reveals that Paul, 52, was involved in 5 companies probed by federal agencies before, during, or after his time there. He joined the board of a biofuel company after it defrauded investors, according to an SEC ruling, and whose CEO was convicted after bribing Georgia officials. That's number 1. Paul was president of an environmental investment firm that turned out to be a front for 2 convicted fraudsters, documents reveal. Just unlucky. He served as vice president of a company previously embroiled in an investigation of scam calls that targeted senior citizens. Another, a medical company Pelosi Jr. worked for, was accused of testing drugs on people without FDA authorization. And then a source close to a firm Nancy's son worked for told DailyMail.com that Pelosi Jr. received $2.8 million worth of shares allegedly issued as part of a massive $164 million fraud scheme in July of 2016. He just winds up at the wrong place at the wrong time, Rick.
Well, I'm sure Mom's proud of him.
Yes.
No doubt. We've heard in recent years how the Democrats have turned California into a third world nation. I didn't know how bad it was until early this morning, and I saw videos from Los Angeles. I was like, this can't be real. This must be, this is worse.
New Delhi or something like that.
This has got to be New Delhi. There's no way that this is Los Angeles, California. What you're going to see is the debris along railroad tracks. The debris are boxes from Amazon that the thieves have stolen off trains.
Right.
And
so train robberies are back in vogue.
And stolen the merchandise that when you ordered something from Amazon, you're wondering, why hasn't it showed up yet? Okay?
Well, that supply chain issue,
Yeah,
right?
I got a supply chain issue. Disruption in the supply. Yeah, there's a disruption. The thieves in California are robbing the trains, and you are not going to believe what you're about to see. Watch this.
Unopened. COVID rapid tests.
You don't know about stuff like this out
Right.
here. This
Now,
is
United States Postal Service doesn't use the trains; they just use planes and cars.
I think so. I've never seen one USPS item out here yet.
I can't believe that's the United States of America.
I've been trying to order vitamins for 3 different times, and twice now the order has gone missing. Now I know it might be sitting off a rail car in Los Angeles.
If you fly out there and walk around, you'll find all
Probably
3
find my
packages, okay?
So.
But the Democrats made thievery legal.
That's right.
in California. You can steal up to $950 and the cops will not arrest you.
And you didn't see that policeman in a hurry to catch anyone there.
Well, what was he going to do with him? The court system would release him.
That's right.
You can't arrest him. If he had $949 worth of merchandise on him, the cop couldn't arrest him. Because Gavin Newsom and the Democratic legislature legalized thievery. Well, why wouldn't the Democrats legalize thievery?
They've been good at it for so long. And
It's
so
a corrupt...
They're just getting everybody in on it.
It's a corrupt political party run by gangsters. All right, the next one, this is, Doc, I'll let you go with this one. You told me about it.
All right, so we're not much into celebrity news or anything like that, but this is a story that you just really couldn't pass up. So celebrity Megan Fox, she's been in the Transformer movies, and Machine Gun Kelly, rapper and artist and all that other stuff. Well, they got engaged, and but what's unusual about this particular engagement is they sealed the union by drinking each other's blood. Yes, you read that right. So in July of 2020, this is Megan Fox quoting here, "We sat under this banyan tree." She wrote in the caption of the post, this was on Instagram, "We asked for magic. We were oblivious to the pain we would face together in such a short, frenetic period of time, unaware of the work and sacrifices the relationship would require from us, but intoxicated off the love and the karma. Somehow a year and a half later, having walked through hell together and having laughed more than I ever imagined possible, he asked me to marry him," she continued. "And just as in every lifetime before this one," she said, "and as in every lifetime that will follow it, I said yes. And then we drank each other's blood."
So they're Satanists.
Yes.
They're demon-possessed Satanists. What's new, Doc? There's no news here.
No, you're right. That's not news. It's just out front.
This is the upper class, the ruling class of America. These are the people that are elevated up to be celebrities, stars, people that we're supposed to admire and fawn over, but they're blood-drinking Satanists. Where's the news? It's just what we've been saying for 20-some years here. America is ruled by Satanists. They're telling you, we drink the blood.
Right.
We drink each other's blood. Did you drink your wife's blood at your wedding?
No, I had to pass on that one. So,
okay. When's the last time you went to a wedding and they were drinking each other's blood?
It's been a while. Mm-hmm. It's been a very long time. In fact, it's been never. And so, the fact that this is a story is just, it's been missed by so many people out there too.
Well, how about a Satan club at an elementary school in the state of Illinois?
Yeah, this is, and look at how this is a flyer that's being passed out in a school in Moline, Illinois. And hey kids, let's have fun at After School Satan Club. Science projects, puzzles and games, arts and crafts, nature activities, maybe drinking some blood too. And so this is what's going on in Illinois right now, After School Satan Clubs, sponsored by the Satanic Temple. So the program for children in grades 1st through 5th, Rick, okay, will be taught by volunteers at the Jane Addams Elementary School in Moline, Illinois. Well, once again, where's the news? There is no news. Blood-drinking celebrities and after-school Satan clubs. Welcome to America, everybody.
This country is so far gone. Now, when the Iranians call America the Great Satan, are they exaggerating? Think about it, Doc. They call us the Great Satan. Well, what are we? Our movie stars and celebrities drink blood? We have satanic clubs in the schools. What are we? If we're not the Great Satan, what does the Great Satan look like?
The Great Satan would have after-school Satan clubs.
And drink blood.
Drinking celebrities.
So we have become the Great Satan. I'm going to end, this is Friday, so in Friday, every Friday that means some innocent Palestinians were killed by the Zionists. What I'm going to show you here is First of all, this is the times of Israel. Elderly Palestinian man. He's said to have died of a heart attack during an arrest by Israeli troops. He's 80-year-old man. The Israeli soldiers, burst into his little home after midnight to search his home. He's 80 years old.
Right.
What were they doing? They were just harassing a Palestinian.
And so they tied him up.
They beat him up.
And
then they said,
well, he died of a heart attack.
He had a heart attack.
Well, yeah, he died of a heart. His heart stopped.
Yes.
So
because he was terrified by Israeli soldiers in his house at midnight beating him up. But it's just fun to the Israeli Zionists. They like to do it. They can do it because they can do it. Nobody's going to stop them.
And no one complains.
Nobody. They can do anything they want because they're Jewish Zionists, and you're not allowed to say anything about them. So they just harass and terrorize 80-year-old Palestinian men at midnight until they have heart attacks. Now, the next one I'm going to show you, this is a video of the Israelis harassing the Bedouins. The Bedouins are the nomads. They've been around in Palestine since about
the beginning of time.
The beginning of time. They're actually mentioned in the Old Testament Bible.
Right.
They're people that don't have fixed places. They move about in the desert.
And they like it that way.
They like it. That's the way they've always lived since the time of Moses. And they don't mess with anybody. They just want to be left alone. And everybody in the Middle East respects the Bedouins and loves the Bedouins, and they don't harm them. They're innocent, kind people, except the Zionists. Because you know what? Those Bedouins come in and they pitch their tents on land that the Zionists want to steal.
Right.
And build houses on it.
So here's how the Israelis do this, right? So they've got these big projects that are here in the U.S. They're called, where they plant trees in Israel. Yeah. You've seen them on TV, Fox, and all of it. It's a plant a tree in Israel. Send a donation, plant a tree in Israel. And so what they're doing is they're saying they're reclaiming the desert in all this. I remember when CBN had its big push on that. And so right now, what Israel's doing is they're planting a whole bunch of trees out in the Negev Desert. Now, the Negev Desert is, guess what? That's where the Bedouins live, and that's where they've lived for generations.
And they're not doing this to save the environment. No. They're doing it
to claim the
land so that there are trees growing where the Bedouins camp.
And so they plant a tree. Every tree that Israel is planting, they're claiming the land.
Yes.
That's the process here. The Bedouins are getting a little bit fed up with it. And so we got a video here that is showing the clash between the Bedouins and the encroachment on their sovereignty as they try just to live life and raise a family.
So I want to dedicate this video to Dr. Michael Brown and Stephen Strang and all the Christian Zionists who are so proud that they stand with Israel. Well, stand with this. That's what Israeli Jews do to Palestinians. Need I say any more? The video tells the truth. I stand with the Palestinians. I love you very much. I care about you. I pray for you. And I know many of you pray for me and Doc and all of us here. We got a great team. Pray for the whole team. There's a lot of us here working behind the scenes, and there's a lot of projects underway. And we appreciate your prayers and your support. These are strange times that we're in, perilous times, but they're the end of times, and the Lord is coming back. By the way, I said the end of times. My book, Final Day, All right, so we're sold out of the first edition hardback,
Right.
but the second edition will be here in weeks, and it's a paperback. The price will be less than the hardback, and we will have them here in a couple of weeks. And I've added a lot of new material
Well, I
to
was
the
just
book.
getting ready to say to you, Rick, if I had the hardback, why would I want the paperback?
Because I put stuff in the second. It's not just a reprint of the first edition. It's the second edition.
Okay.
I've beefed it up. I've made it better. I put things in the second edition I wish I had in the first edition. The second edition is really, really good, and it will be here in a couple weeks. And next week we'll make an announcement. You can start pre-sale orders. You can be able to order it in advance. It's being printed right now as paperback.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah.
So,
So it's, if you haven't gotten a copy, you want to get the second edition. All right. That's it for today. See you on Monday.
God bless you.